Start game now.
Welcome, retro fans. This is the No Swear Gamer, your host of Retro Reviews, and today I'm joined by the awesome Nintendo controller wristband. How cool is that? Now your wrist is playing with power, Nintendo power. And he is joining me today as we take a look at Adventure Island for the Nintendo Entertainment System. You can excuse the confusion because back in the day there was a company called Escape that developed a game called Wonder Boy that Sega put out into the arcades. Now Sega would take Wonder Boy to its own system, the Sega Master System, and Hudson Soft decided to license Wonder Boy for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but they called it Adventure Island. They changed the character, but basically it's the same game. Now Hudson Soft would continue the Adventure Island series where you kind of went on this platformer as this little caveman looking dude with a nice little hat, while Sega would take Wonder Boy and turn it more into an action-adventure series. So anyways, yeah, we are going to pop this into Nintendo in just a second here. Just check out that artwork. There is a lot of action going on in that artwork. I really dig that. I think it's very cool. Kind of reminds me of more of the Japanese-style Famicom kind of artwork going on there. Like the little seal, I have no idea what it means. I guess that's the seal of approval for Master Higgins there. But this is a really neat artwork there. I think that guy kind of looks like a cross between Q*bert and the squid from Super Mario Brothers. But you got a lot of action crammed into that little space. So definitely a cool label. We will see if the game lives up to its label as we pop this into my Nintendo Entertainment System front loader. So let's not waste any more time. Let's find out if Adventure Island is an adventure worth taking. In Adventure Island, you are you're Master Higgins, and you're out to save the princess who's been kidnapped by the evil witch doctor. Are there any other kind of witch doctors? It is a one-player platformer where you move from left to right, just like Mario. It is one of these games where you go to the right, you can no longer go back to the screen before you, so you must use your real estate wisely. It is comprised of 32 levels, basically 8 sections with 4 levels each, and at the end of the section, there is a boss. Now, in Adventure Island, you start with 3 lives. You also have a life bar, but this is a little misleading to the eyes because Adventure Island is a one-hit wonder game. In Adventure Island, if you get hit by an enemy or even by a fire, you will die. So what's the point of the life bar, you say? I'm glad you asked. Adventure Island has an interesting gameplay mechanic where your life bar is constantly draining. So if you just sit there doing nothing, eventually you will die as well. So what you have to do is you have to continuously eat various fruits and food items that pop up on the screen so you have energy to keep on going. So yes, it is a one-hit wonder game with a life bar. The mechanic works pretty well. Most things, there are some things like rocks where if you trip over them, they will take some of your life bar. But again, most things like the fire and the enemies, you touch them, you die. And also there are some falls. If you fall into the ocean or off into any bottomless pit, you will die as well. I wonder if you will see E.T. if you fall into a bottomless pit. So anyways, in Adventure Island, you will find items hidden all over, usually hidden within eggs. Now you crack the egg open and it reveals a surprise. The most common item that you will need in the game is the axe. And the axe is assigned one of the buttons and you'll be constantly throwing the axe throughout the game. However, the same button, the B button for the X, is also your run button, just like Mario, so it serves dual purpose, and sometimes this gameplay mechanic can get a little frustrating where you want to just throw the X, but you end up going faster, or you want to go faster, but you're throwing the X, and sometimes getting them to sync up just the way you want takes a little bit of timing. The A button is your jump button. You'll be using that as well. Some of the other items you can find include a skateboard. Now the skateboard is both fun and frustrating. It's fun because it kind of gives you an extra hit. As long as you're on the skateboard, if you get hit by something, The skateboard will poof away, but you will still be alive. It doesn't matter what you hit. However, the skateboard moves very fast. So if you do a good job of handling it, it can be lots of fun. But at the same time, it can go so quick that you may not have time to react, and you might find yourself jumping with your skateboard into a bottomless pit with ET, which means, yeah, you die. There is no cure for falling into a bottomless pit. Another thing that is very interesting that you should definitely be on the lookout for in the game is the honeybee symbol. If you find the honeybee symbol at the end of the first world, it's right before the end. You have to kind of jump up and down, do a little dance, and find that egg. It will allow you to continue. And you will definitely want to get that honeybee, which is also the Hudson bee mascot there. You will want to get that to continue continue on in the game. What happens is after the game and it says game over, if you hit right and start at the same time, it allows you to pick up right where you left off. Some of the other items you can find is an eggplant, which will hinder you for a while. There was a cool Famicom controller that I found. I thought that was very cool. I think it just gave you points and other things as well. Now, here's the thing about Adventure Island. It is a very, very tough game. I mean, this game is very hard. Part of the problem is the control. It felt very slippery to me. There's many times where you have to make these time jumps. You have to land on a platform just right, and I felt like I slipped off, even though it wasn't an ice world. And this game does have an ice world where it gets extra slippery. So yeah, Adventure Island is a tough game. The controls are slippery, and sometimes you will find yourself getting frustrated. This is one of those games back in the day where kids may have taken their controller and threw it against the wall. Do not advise doing that. It's not good for your controller, and definitely not good for your wall. But yeah, this is one of those controller throwing games at times. But here's where it kind of redeems itself. In the manual, you know that honeybee I told you about, that if you find at the end of the first level, it'll allow you to continue if you hit the right and the start at the end. In the manual, they actually tell you about that. Now, usually game hints, game little Easter eggs, if you will, that you find in games, usually they don't make or break a game, but in this case, they totally make the game. If this game had no continue option, I would never recommend it. It is just such a hard game. It takes lots and lots of practice, and it has 32 levels, and chances are the first time through, you're only going to get through 1, 2, or 3 of them. You're not probably even going to get that far into it the first time. So if you can only get through the first 2 levels of a 32 level game, you know, how are you going to survive all 32? It'd be a near impossible Herculean effort. But the developers were very wise to hide this continue in the game and also give you an incentive to read the manual back in the days before Google and the internet and what have you. So in this game, I would, if it wasn't for the continue, I would not recommend it, but I definitely think that this hint, this little Easter egg, makes all the difference in the world. Back in episode 10, I reviewed the Addams Family. And one of the biggest things about the Addams Family that made it an awful game to me was not just that it was hard, but it was like a Metroid game where you couldn't continue. And I would imagine that if Metroid didn't have a password system, that it would not get the praise it has today, because it wouldn't encourage you to explore some more. It would really kind of discourage you from going on in the game because you'd constantly start at the beginning. But in Addams Family, there was no password, no continue of any kind. You'd have to start the whole thing over again, and it just became too much of a task, too frustrating to be fun. Whereas this game, the addition of the continue turns it from a game that would have been bad and frustrating, kind of like Addams Family, even though I think it controls a little bit better and overall is a little more entertaining. But the ability to continue in Adventure Island turns the game from being bad and frustrating to being one that I could recommend to a degree. This is the kind of game where if you were a kid, had a Nintendo, and were going down to the local video store to rent a game for a weekend, this would make a really good weekend rental. I think definitely would. Now, it does take a while. 32 levels. So imagine if it takes you 4 minutes to master each level. Even with the continues, this game's going to take you a while to beat. It's not a quick game. It's a game that's going to you'd have to dedicate a lot of time to beat. So is this a game that I would say you should buy? Only if you're really nostalgic for it. Only if this sounds like something that you're really into. Otherwise, this is the game where either if you found it on the cheap, or just happened to stumble upon a copy, yeah, pick it up, try it out. But it's not a game I would go out of my way for it. I would definitely say, it's a rental type game, but I wouldn't say necessarily it's a game you should own. The graphics, they're above average. The music too. There's nothing fancy in this game. Everything suits its purpose in here. If you were looking at it from a family-friendly perspective, there's no blood or guts. It's very kidified. It's very cartoony. Animals just poof when you defeat them. So there's nothing too horrific. Maybe the most horrific thing in the game is either the end bosses, which I guess could frighten some kids, but I highly doubt it, or the fact that when you jump in the fire, you are engulfed in flames for a brief second, but it's played more for comedy. If you want to find this game on eBay, a loose copy is going to set you back about $8 to $10. A complete copy, it's a little more collectible, as a complete copy is going to be about $20 to $30. Of course, as I said at the beginning, this game was originally Wonder Boy. You could also play Wonder Boy, this game, on the Sega Master System, and Sega released it on the Game Gear as Revenge of Dracon, I think it is. I think there's also on the 3DS Virtual Console, which, if that has, I don't know, but if it has like a virtual save feature, would make that game a little more desirable too to play it with a feature. And I'm pretty sure Adventure Island's on the Wii Virtual Console too. But looking at the games I'd ranked, I would have to say that this game goes in the number 2 slot. It is a game, I've ranked a lot of games that are mediocre to poor, especially games like Tax Avoiders, really bad game. This definitely stands above the crowd in that one. It's not a must-own game like Bust-A-Move 2, not even close, but it's the kind of game, again, if you find it at a garage sale for $1 or you inherit it with a group of games, check it out. It's Adventure Island, and it is for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Hey, guess what? You can now like the No Swear Gamer on Facebook and Google+. All you have to do is go to either one of those sites, search for the No Swear Gamer, and you can go ahead and follow me there. I'd appreciate that. I'd also appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And once again, I thank you for giving me a little part of your day. Have a great one.